This video will go over the components of site setup so you understand the theory behind them. Then we'll go through setting up a site to incorporate these things. One of the first things you learn about is walls. There are two types of walls, non-destructible walls and soft destructible walls. You can add a third type by reinforcing a soft wall and making it hard without having to use any special pills. Non-destructible walls can't be destroyed at all. These are the general map walls. Soft walls are usually pretty easy to spot as they're a different colour to the general map walls. These can be shot through, destroyed with explosives and meleeed. However, you can strengthen them with a reinforcement. Reinforced walls can't be shot through, meleeed, nor can they be destroyed by most explosives. To open a reinforced wall, you need a gadget capable of hard breaching. However, you can place an electrifying gadget or a mute jammer on a reinforced wall to make it harder for attackers to open. Soft walls can also be mute jammed, but it's generally considered a waste as you can shoot the jammer through the wall. There are only two types of hatches, soft hatches and reinforced ones. It's up to you to decide which ones get reinforced, though sometimes you can't reinforce ones you may want to. There are other ways to use those though. Generally, any hatch that goes directly to site is one you want to reinforce, especially if you're not playing vertically. However, you can leave them soft as an escape option for anyone doing an extended hold. With shotguns, you should be able to break a hatch in one shot. If you struggle with this, there's two things you can do. The easiest is to just shoot from a corner and try to get the pellet spread as wide as possible. This will do the most damage to the hatch and generally makes it pretty consistent. Alternatively, you can align yourself opposite to the beams and aim in the center to get a decent spread. If you're unsure which way the beams are going, these little metal bits will be opposite to them. With DMRs, hatches will break in 6 shots consistently. With glass, generally, hatches will break in 3 shots. However, if you only hit the planks and miss the beams, you will need a 4th shot. Kelly will one-shot hatches. There are 2 types of barricades in Siege. Normal wooden barricades that every defender has access to, and Castle's bulletproof barricades unique to him. Normal barricades can be destroyed by bullets, melee and explosives. Effectively, they're not stopping much. They exist on all maps on exterior facing doors and windows. However, as a defender, you are able to place more in any interior doors and windows if you want to. You have to be cautious with this though, as a poorly placed barricade can hurt your team too. It can make it harder for your roamers to rotate, which could be detrimental to them. They can also mask movements of attackers behind them, so you need to be aware of where you place them and why. Castle's barricades are bulletproof, but they are still vulnerable to melee and explosives. They generally take more time to break than normal barricades, so you have to be really cautious with where you place them so as not to hinder your team. Normal barricades take 3 hits to break, whereas castles take 9. Knowing how many hits it takes to break a barricade means we can prep them. Prepping a barricade is when you make it 1 melee hit away from breaking. This allows you to carry out a run out. Attackers won't know it's prepped unless they spot a barricade being prepped, so you have the element of surprise. There's a few different ways to prep a barricade. The simplest one is to just punch the bottom of the barricade twice. For windows, this will have no visual distinction from the other side, so long as you only punch the part of the barricade that overlaps with the wall. For doors, this will leave a little debris, but it can be missed. You will know it's prepped when you get the vault prompt. Castle barricades will not show that they've been prepped from the other side, so you can punch these however you like. You do not get a vault prompt for castle barricades. You can also prep normal barricades with bullets. It takes 20 to destroy one, so if you carefully shoot around the barricade 19 times, you can prep it for a run out on the 20th bullet. This will allow you to reload and only expend 1 bullet of your mag to run out. If you break part of the barricade, it will take 19 bullets rather than 20. Prepping barricades like this gives no indication they've been prepped unless there is a surface opposite that can catch the bullets or you break part of the barricade. Also, this is more consistent on single doors. When it comes to double doors, it can be a little messier. To be more consistent with those, shoot 10 on one side, 9 on the other and the last in the middle. You may sometimes see players shooting windows randomly and wonder why. Normally this is done on maps where the windows have glass. When the glass is up, it impacts how sound propagates and it's harder to hear things on the other side. Breaking the glass allows sound to travel through much clearer. It takes 4 to 5 bullets to break the glass and you'll be able to hear it shatter. Rotation holes, or rotates, are incredibly important to have. They allow you another way to move between the two bomb sites without having to exit the site. They are often a safer alternative and a great way to join the bomb sites together. Rotates can be used in conjunction with other well-placed holes to potentially hold both sites from one location. There are generally 3 types of rotates: crouch rotates, walking rotates, and vault rotates. Crouch rotates are the most common. They allow crouched players to get through. These can also sometimes slow down shields. You may also see the odd walking rotate too. They're big enough that someone can walk through them. They do expose more though, which you generally want to avoid, so try to be careful. If you have a clash, for instance, you may want specific walking rotates for her, depending on how you're playing. Just be aware that a Monty can also get through them. Vault rotates are more niche, usually reserved for more specific spots. These are generally going to be used in places you might expect the attackers to have easier access to. They offer some light protection to fight from and can also be used to hide certain traps under. Feet holes are holes created on the bottom of soft walls. These are typically created on walls along hallways as they can make it harder for attackers to progress. If you are watching them from the right angle, they are also pretty hard to contest. You can also use feet holes between sites if one site is harder to defend than the other. This can make it easier to watch it from the other whilst also making it harder for the attackers to enter it. Well, since we have feet holes, it only makes sense we also have head holes. They're exactly what they sound like, holes at the head level. These are typically used more aggressively as they're used to fight from. They're common beside mirror windows, but can also be used next to a reinforced wall as a pseudo mirror setup. This will generally force you to blind swing though. You can also place these between the sites to hold both sites from one location. Just be careful where you place them as they will show the attackers exactly where to aim, and Siege has one-shot headshots. Stair/ceiling holes are created on specific walls to deny staircases. These are usually created on a soft wall at the bottom of a staircase. You will generally have the advantage when fighting from these as it is harder to fight from above than it is to fight from below. Now we get to the fun part, setting up a site. The best way to do this, in my opinion, is a custom game. I'll load one with smoke and pick the site I want to learn. I'll go through the basement defense on bank for this, just as it's a fairly well known one, but it can incorporate a lot of things we've discussed. Before we can start reinforcing stuff, we first need to understand what we're working with. To figure this out, I'll shoot a hole through every wall on both sides. This lets us identify what walls lead into what rooms and can help us prioritize our use of utility. Whilst doing this, I'll also look for hatches and destroy them so I can identify where they go. Once the site is broken down, we'll need to start figuring out where we want to use our resources. All we have right now is 10 reinforcements, and it's important to know how we can use these as this is the only consistent resource you will have. The first thing to look for is important hatches, as a hatch on or around the sites can really impact how they are played. If you're on a site where there are no hatches, this bit is pretty easy. In our case, we have 5 that are either on or around the bomb sites. We need to figure out where these hatches are from above and how them being open impacts gameplay. So time to start running around the map. This is where we open them, as it's easier to identify which ones we saw from below. Once you find one, look down it as if you were an attacker. How could you use this hatch? You can also hop down and try to look at it from both perspectives. As a defender, how does it impact you? What do you lose by it being open? As an attacker, what happens when you drop? How risky is it? And what could you gain? In this specific example, we have 4 out of 5 hatches that I would reinforce. I have highlighted these for you. This is because these are the hatches with the most pressure onto the sites. The 5th hatch doesn't put much pressure onto the site, so we don't need to worry about it. This will leave us with 6 reinforcements. If you want, you can reload the custom or wait for the next round to reinforce the hatches. Now we've got the hatches out of the way, we need to decide where we want our rotates. We do this before the walls because we need to understand what areas we need to protect. Having the rotates done first will give us a better picture of this. You typically want at least 1 rotate between the 2 bomb sites, but you can opt for more if it's a bigger area. The type of rotate will depend on how you play it. If you're ever unsure, a crouch rotate is always the safest option. Just be aware, once you make a hole, you can't undo it. You'll need a reinforcement to cover it up, so take your time and play around with different ideas in the custom. Once the rotates are done, you want to figure out where, if anywhere, you want the head holes and feet holes. This is especially important for head holes, as you normally reinforce the wall next to a head hole to provide some cover or escape. In this case, we have a staircase that I will make holes for. I'll reinforce the wall next to it, so now we have 5 left. As CCTV has a hatch above it, it can be difficult to hold the site from inside of it. However, if we create head holes on the red hallway wall, we can hold it from here without being as exposed to the hatch. Some people prefer to reinforce the wall closest to vault and make head holes next to it, others prefer vice versa. You can try both and see which you prefer. Once all the holes are done, you look at what's left and decide which walls you need to reinforce. In our case, I will cover off the garage wall as we have rotates that go into red hallway. The wall being open can cut these rotates off and split the defense in half. I will also reinforce the two CCTV/server walls. This will make it harder to enter the site and contest our angles. Well, that's everything, right? We've got the site set up, we should be good to go. Well, not quite. As good of a job as we did setting up the site itself, the attackers have 3 minutes to get through our defenses. It's better for us as defenders if they spend as much of that time away from the bomb site as the time is on our side. If we just turtle over here, they can use most of their time figuring out our setup and planning a way to get through it. So, what can we do? Extended holds are when you extend the area you will defend away from the bomb sites. They are designed to divert the attacker's resources, both in utility and time, so they have less to use on the sites themselves. These can be as simple as extending to an adjacent room, or they can go so far as to be held on a different floor entirely, if the site allows for it. You will often have to use some of your resources to prolong the longevity of that hold. In order to be able to work on an extended hold, you need to know the absolute minimum resources you need to dedicate to the main bomb sites. It is also important to know the verticality of the map. If there's a way to attack the site vertically, you probably want to extend to that area too. Anything that can be attacked from above can also generally be defended from above. A common way to extend on the basement hold is to go into server. It directly contests the jewelry drop and makes it harder for attackers to come down blue. Holding server for as long as you can means they have less time to attack CCTV. It's also fairly easy as there's a giant server rack in the middle which provides ample cover. You don't need to divert many resources to make it viable. There is a hatch in server though, and we chose not to reinforce it. We have one reinforcement left. Why don't we just make it safer for whoever plays server by reinforcing it? Well, you can, but it's a double-edged sword. That hatch being opened doesn't guarantee the server player dies. If they're behind the rack, they can't see them. They'll need to flush them out with utility, like a grenade or Capital's fight asphyxiation box. Owamai or Jaeger can easily help with this. If you reinforce the server hatch and lose server, it's much harder for you to contest it as defenders. Leaving the hatch soft gives anyone who may flank the opportunity to open it and get some easy picks. There are other ways to support anyone playing server, as you can watch the dirt tunnel entrance from CCTV as an anchor. You can also watch blue stairs from the CCTV doorway, so if your server player is getting pushed from 2 angles, you can pick one and make their life a little easier. Just make sure you're mindful of the hatch as it can see you. Alternatively, you could just have someone play blue stairs. They'll probably need something to catch grenades, but they can stop the hatch getting opened and come down and support server directly if required. I'm not going to go too extensive on roaming in this video as I plan on making a separate how to defend video, but I just thought I'll take a moment to say that roamers can utilize some of these things too. As a roamer, you will generally have less setup to do, so knowing how to set up site can ease the burden on your teammates. You can also incorporate some of the setup components in your roaming. You could set up head holes in walls you think you may encounter attackers from, or just set up rotates around the map so you have more maneuverability and escape options.